Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would focus the video on how I make my sourdough because I've gotten a lot of questions about it and I'm no expert, definitely no expert. There are some incredible, very in-depth tutorials on YouTube from bread makers and people who've like really studied sourdough. And also I appreciate watching people's just regular routine with sourdough. Everyone seems to do it a little differently. And I figured I would share, and if it's helpful, then that's great. I've been making sourdough since we moved here, which I guess was almost 2 years ago. And I've tried a lot of different methods, a lot of different ratios, different flours, different everything. And I'm now consistently, ooh, the light changed. I'm now consistently making really good loaves every single time. So that's the place I wanted to be at before I even attempted to share my process because, you know, there's a lot of times they would just come out flat or, yeah, they always taste good, but sometimes they would come out flat. But I think I've got it down in a way that works for me, so I thought I would share. A few things just to start. If you're brand new at sourdough, you will need a few things. You can really make it as simple or as complicated as you want. There's very complicated ways and there's also very simple ways. Thank you to Peak for sponsoring this video. As y'all probably know, I have loved Peak's products for quite a while now. I've worked with them for years actually. The product that's stuck with us and stuck with our family is the Sun Goddess matcha. It is such a delicious matcha. It's so flavorful. It's so pure tasting. You can really taste the quality. And it's very strong, like I've mentioned in other videos. When I need an energy boost, like I do right now, I have to pack up and ship, or I get to pack up and ship a bunch of poetry book orders, and I'm a little bit tired. So I'm going for a Sun Goddess matcha because it is the best quality matcha I've ever tried. It is packed with antioxidants. The process and the way that they grow the matcha is very special. It's also mold tested. It's heavy metal tested. So really, really good quality and very pure, which is important to me. It's also packed with L-theanine, so it gives like a really nice caffeine energy boost, but also induces kind of like a calming effect so I don't get anxious, which I do with a lot of other caffeinated drinks. Sage loves this matcha. Everyone loves it. It's like a fun, fancy thing to make for people when they come over. Peak's Sun Goddess matcha is the best matcha for performance and energy. Get up to 15% off plus a cup and rechargeable frother using my link peaklife.com/rohini. Bare minimum, you need some jars. You need jars for your starter. I just like to use mason jars. I have a bunch around the house anyway in different sizes, so depending on how much bread I'm making, I can use the different sizes. Then something to score the loaf with. I like to just use a razor blade. I have the little bread lane, but I just use a razor blade by itself. It's easier. It just works for me. A bench scraper is great. I suppose you don't need one, but it really, really just helps, makes it easier. And they have little like sourdough kits on Amazon you could get that have everything. If you want to be fancy, you can use a Banneton basket. I honestly don't really use it. Sometimes I do when I remember, but it's not necessary, but you can. And then a really good bowl. That's something I'd recommend, just having like a sourdough bowl. You could also use whatever bowl you want. If you have a mixing bowl, that works fine. You know, you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. But I really do love like a nice ceramic bowl, and make sure it's really big enough to fit dough for 2 loaves, because making 1 loaf at a time is kind of impractical, I find, because it goes really quick and then you're just making loaves all the time instead of, you know, making 2, it lasts a week, and then you make 2 more and it lasts a week, and you know, all that. And then you need some flour. I after my experimentation, I have found that bread flour works the best. It makes the fluffiest, lightest bread. I don't have a loaf, I have like a crumb of, this is the butt, all I have left in my last loaf to show you, but you can probably see it's just very light on the inside. This is old, so it's kind of hard, but I've just found that I like it the most. The crust is kind of like flaky, but still has a nice little crunch to it, nothing too extreme, and the flavor is always great no matter what flour you use, I found, but just the texture and the lightness, bread flour really helps with that. You can also use all-purpose flour, you can use whole wheat flour, you can get fancy and use spelt or einkorn or whatever, but that's a bit more complex because they just seem to be a bit more sensitive. So I like to do, lately I've been doing like 95 or 90% bread flour and then 5 or 10% wheat or spelt. I find that adding a little bit of wheat in there just makes it taste a little more rich. And also, I'm forgetting exactly how it works, but something about the gluten in the wheat makes the process better. I can't remember. Again, not a professional. This is the bread flour I like, the King Arthur organic unbleached bread flour. It is, you know, an investment to buy it a lot. Unfortunately, I get all my other bulk goods from Azure Standard and it's much more cost effective, but I just really don't like their bread flour. I have tried their wheat, and I mean their wheat bread flour is fine, but their white bread flour makes Waldorf bread, as Sage calls it. It's like so dense, it tastes so healthy. It's just like the hippiest bread you've ever had in your life, and I don't like it. I've tried it so many different ways, and this one just is really good. It gives it that like consistency. Gotta love the Waldorf bread. Some people really like that, like Sage loves it, but I want that like artisan fluffy loaf that you can buy at the farmer's market. Another thing that you need in order to make sourdough is a scale, just a little scale. When you do make the loaf, most recipes are always in grams, so it's helpful just to be able to measure it exactly and track your starter and all of that. So a scale is a great thing to have. So basically, you just need a starter. You need to have a starter. I made my starter myself when we moved here because I didn't know anyone around here that had a starter. But if you have a friend who makes sourdough or a family member, get the starter from them. They can just give you a little bit and you can go off of that. It will be so much better. It'll save you time. It'll work better because it's already built up. So that's the great way to go. I have also heard people love the Ballerina Farm starter. You can order it online from their store. It's dehydrated and then they teach you how to like rehydrate and all that. I've seen a few people that have that starter and their bread is always very nice. It's also simple to make your own. All you really need to do is put in equal parts, this is how I do it, equal parts flour and water every day. You can do it twice a day if you want, or just once a day for 9 days. That's what I did to really get it going. And then once you see that the starter has doubled and is very bubbly, it smells really like sour and good, then you can start baking with it. I am less precise now about feeding my starter. I just kind of eyeball it and I'll show you guys what I do, but basically you just need water and flour and then starter. So this is the first step in making the loaves. And those of you who already make sourdough are probably like, I already know all this, just show me your recipes and ratios. So not everyone does this, but I found it's helpful. I like to heat up the water between 85 and 95 degrees. Some people just go off, you know, feeling it. If it's lukewarm, it's fine. The idea is that you don't want it to be too cold because it could kill the starter, and you don't want it to be too hot because it could kill the starter. Definitely don't want it to be boiling. That would be not good. But in between that 85, 95 lukewarm range is great. I have plenty of friends who use just like cold-ish, warmish tap water and it's fine. So really is just whatever works for you. To feed my starter, I have my starter that I fed yesterday, so it is not active right now. It needs to be fed. It's just like us, we get hungry, and then once we eat, we have a lot of energy and we can do a lot, and then after we go through all our food, we're tired and we need to rest or we need to eat again. So that's the same thing with the starter. Right now my starter's hungry and needs to eat again if it wants to make bread and have the energy to do that. So since I'm making 2 loaves, I want to make sure I have enough. So I try to just eyeball it and do everything in equal amounts, 1-to-1 ratio. Some people do 1-to-3, 1-to-5 even. I just do 1-to-1, but you can experiment and see what's best for you. This is the way that I learned it, and it really is not, I've found that it doesn't have to be very precise, this part. You just kind of eyeball it, and I'm mixing. I have 3 kinds of flour in here because I don't want to use all my bread flour for the starter. I want to use it for the bread. That looks pretty good. And then take my water that's at the nice lukewarm temperature and just add some, about the same amount, but you'll be able to feel when you stir it if it's the right amount or if you need a little more. And add just a smidge more. Some people like really runny starters, some people like more firm starters. There really is so much give when you make sourdough, and that's what's fun, is you just find what works for you and stick with it. It's kind of like thick pancake batter. Not too loose, but also nice and blended. That's how I like to do it, because you're gonna dissolve it in water anyway. Yeah, so that's about it. So I found that the most important factor for me is the temperature of the room. I, for so long, was wondering why my starter sucked, but it actually was fine. It just wasn't warm enough. So I'm gonna put this in, I'm gonna put a little cloth over it, not shut the lid, but just have a little cloth like this. So it's not, the fermentation's not like trapped in there. I'm gonna leave this in the window in the sun so it is warm. And you can also put it like on your stove top with the light on, or you can put it in the oven with the light on, but I am apt to forget about it if I put it in the stove and turn on the stove and kill it and burn it and cause a whole problem, because I'm definitely, pregnancy brain is happening. So I'm just gonna put it in a warm spot, and if your house is cold, really try to find a warm spot. Like sometimes I'll even turn on the oven just so my starter will rise. You can put it by the heater, by the wood stove, but not too close so it doesn't burn it. But yeah, if you find that it's not rising, it might be the temperature. So I'm gonna leave this and gonna come back to it this evening. It's 12:40 right now, and we'll be back from town around like 6:30. So that's when I'm gonna make my bread. It probably will peak a little bit earlier than when we're back, but you know, sometimes you just gotta work with your schedule and just your day. So now I'm going to leave it here in this warm place, and before I can bake with it, it needs to have doubled. So it's here, it needs to be, oh my gosh, Remy. Oh, sorry, puppy. It needs to be here, and it's a great idea to put a rubber band where it was, but we don't have one. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm back later in the day, as you can tell, a bit later than I wanted. It's already peaked earlier, probably when we were gone, but we had a bunch of errands and we had to go wrestle some cows. So it's almost 8 now. And I'm just gonna start this right now because this is real life and you gotta make your sourdough work for you, not the other way around. A little glass of milk. So for this next step, Definitely need a scale. Scale, flour, salt, bread whisk, I believe it's called. You can use your hands too, but I just have one of these given to me, and it does make it easier so you don't get your hands all sticky if you don't want to. And I will move the camera and show you what I'm doing. So this is the recipe that I use. For the ratios, I have it taped on the fridge because I have a really bad memory with numbers, so I just want it to be somewhere easy. I do 950 grams of flour, 200 grams of starter, 650 grams water, 24 grams of salt. So get your scale, make sure it's on grams, zero it out, and then add your lukewarm water. I've already preheated this to make sure it's in the right temperature range. So add 650 grams of water to your bowl. It's okay if you're a little over or under a few grams with anything. It's not super precise, at least not how I do it. And so once you get your water, you can zero it out again. Add your starter, 200 grams. Sometimes I do a little more if I have it. Add your starter to the water, and you can tell you have good starter if it floats in the water. If it sinks, then it probably will not work. So this is what it looks like. Starter is floating in the water, and then just mix it in. If you've ever made bread using instant yeast, it's kind of a similar process, but your starter acts as your yeast. So 950 grams of flour, you can decide which ratios you want that to be. I'm gonna do as much bread flour as I have, and then a little bit of wheat. So I did 860-ish grams of bread flour, and then the rest I'm gonna do with wheat. Henry is very thirsty. Yeah, use one, buddy. And now I'm gonna zero it again. And add my salt. I like salty sourdough, so I'm gonna do 24 grams. Sometimes I even do a little more. So that was 25 grams. Get a nice like squeezy motion with the bread. You can see going like that. Get it all nice and mixed together. You leave it covered with a tea towel for like 25-30 minutes, and then you do your first stretch and fold. It is later than I would like, so I'm probably going to rush it and maybe do only 2 or 3. It's recommended to do at least 3, but sometimes I just get too tired. So I'm gonna leave this, and if it's really dry where you are, just even for these first stretch and folds, you can soak your tea towel with water so the bread doesn't lose any moisture. Then I'm gonna put this starter, I don't have much left in there at all. Just gonna put this with the lid on back in the fridge until I make sourdough next week and feed it again. Now I'm gonna do my first stretch and fold. I like to just get my hands a little bit wet, make it easier. And then you just pick up one side, fold it over, you can turn the bowl if you want, get the next side, stretch it, fold it over, get my hands a little more wet. Third side. And And then I kind of just bring it like that, and then leave it for another 25-30 minutes. I'm in my pajamas now. Round 2, stretch and folds. The dough is much more elastic. It's formed. Probably get in one more before bed. I'm going to go to bed, call it a night, but I just I did one last little stretch and fold and then soaked the tea towel and covered it up, and then in the morning I will put it directly into the fridge so it stops proofing. That's been a hack that my friend Emma taught me. Yeah, as soon as you wake up in the morning, like, which for me will be like at 6, just put the whole bowl right in the fridge so it stops proofing. We're back. I just got home after a very long day, and it is now time to, I just had Sage take out the sourdough that's been, what's it called? Cold fermenting in the fridge since 6 a.m. this morning. It's looking good. It didn't dry out at all. And I'm gonna shape it now and then let it rise a little bit on the counter and then put it in the oven. My oven runs hot, so I bake my bread at 425, but most recipes are like 450, 475, even 500, but my oven's pretty hot, so it tends to burn it if I do it any hotter. So this next step now, I have my Dutch oven preheating in the oven. Dutch oven preheating in the oven sounds funny. So that really helps because it gets super hot and then you put the bread in and it just helps it like really rise really quickly. So then now I'm going to shape it, and just need a bench scraper to cut the dough and some flour to put on the counter. I'm very tired. It's been a long day. But I have found that leaving it in the fridge for at least like 10 hours makes the flavor really nice and sour, because the gluten really breaks down and it just gives it a really nice, yummy, sour flavor. If you need to rush it and bake it sooner, you can. It just won't be as sour tasting. And if you need to leave it in the fridge longer, you can also. It's pretty forgiving as long as you don't let it continue to rise on like warm counter in the morning. And just rise and rise and rise, and it'll overproof and it won't get as poofy. Well, it'll be more of a pancake, which was happening to me for a while. I couldn't figure it out because I have so many things I have to do in the morning, and by the time I got to actually shaping the dough and putting it back in the fridge, it had already overproofed. So that is a hack that my friend Emma taught me. Changed the game. So this is what the dough is looking like. It's nice and fluffy, poofy, and I'm just gonna cut it in half. I actually have a better bench scraper, but I don't know where it is. So I'm just cut it into 2. Take one of the halves, and I like to just kind of let it fall pretty gently. You can tell that it's just, oh no, Remy, no. That would be bad. It's a good sign that the dough is staying together and it's not ripping or getting any holes in it. And just kind of do that gently, kind of stretch it out like this. And I make it into a loose, like rectangle shape. So I usually go for this. Some people really pull it out more and like laminate it, I believe it's called, but I usually end up just going for about this. And then I will fold in the corners. Fold it in like this. Tuck this corner. And make sure it's all nice and tucked like this. And then you roll it in on itself. Usually I use 2 hands, which makes it a little easier. but then you can see the boule, I think shape it's called, starting to take shape. And then once you have this shape, you can see it's rolled up like that. Then you start to, actually it's a pretty good angle for this, start to kind of roll and tuck the corners and the sides underneath on itself. And you can kind of like move it up and down on the counter, smooth it out. This is just something that you kind of get the hang of over time, but you're basically just creating tension. And I was taught to pop bubbles on the surface. I've also seen not to pop the bubbles, so you can do whatever you would like. And it's nice and kind of springy. Got a good shape going. And that looks good. So I'm gonna do the other one. So these look pretty good, and now I'm gonna just leave them on the counter just to rise for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. So these have been sitting for a little bit, and I'm going to put this one in. My other Dutch oven is at a friend's house because I brought her some soup, so I can only make one at a time at the moment, but I like to cover it with just a little flour and then score it. Lately I've just been doing one big, it's important to have one big deep one, and then I've been doing little thing like this, and yeah, usually looks like that. I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. I just put the first loaf in the oven with the lid on, and I learned a trick to just sprinkle some flour in the Dutch oven so the sourdough doesn't stick or burn on the bottom. And I will bake it for half an hour with the lid on, and then take the lid off and bake it for another 10 to 12 minutes until it has a nice little golden crisp on the crust. I'm gonna take the lid off. Moment of truth. Oh, she's a beauty. Nice. I'm gonna put it in for 12 more minutes. And then here's the second loaf. Beauty. There they are. They look really good. I'm so happy. I love making sourdough. It's so fun. My cheeks are really rosy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Good loaves.
Those are nice. Mm-hmm. Those are nice.
You know what that's called?
An ear.
Yeah, nice. Alright, that is how I make my sourdough. I'm happy to write it out also, if that would be helpful, but it's really just a game of experimentation, see what works best for you, and get in a groove, and yeah, don't let it control your life. Just make it work for you. That's my biggest advice. I found that there are few things as rewarding and just delicious as fresh loaf sourdough. It is so great to just have on hand. Everyone loves it. I crave it all the time. It's so great with butter. It's just the perfect snack, and it's so easy. So easy really once you get the hang of it, and the ingredients are so simple, and you just know exactly what's in it, not like the bread at the store. Yeah, so give it a try. You can do it. The most important part is having a good starter and having it be warm enough for everything to rise, and not overproofing your dough. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Good luck on your sourdough journey. I'm going to bed.